The moment I saw the bank statement, my world shattered like glass under a hammer. 20 years of savings, every penny I'd scraped together from late-night shifts and skipped vacations gone. My husband, David, and his sister, Lila, had drained it all, leaving me with nothing but a hollow ache in my chest. I stood in our cramped kitchen, the paper trembling in my hands. The numbers mocked me: $87. $432 reduced to $12. $47. David was supposed to be at work, but the house felt too quiet, the air thick with betrayal. I trusted him with everything: our marriage, our dreams, our future. We'd built a life together, or so I thought, in our modest Seattle home. 2 kids, a dog, and a mortgage we'd tackled as a team. But now, the truth clawed at me. He'd been siphoning our savings, funneling it to Lila for God knows what. I called him, my voice shaking. "David, where's the money?" Silence stretched on the line, heavy and guilty. "We need to talk," he finally muttered, but his tone was evasive, like a man caught with blood on his hands. He promised to be home in an hour. I didn't wait. I grabbed my keys and drove to Lila's apartment, my heart pounding with a mix of rage and dread. Lila's place was a mess: empty wine bottles on the counter, clothes strewn across the floor. She opened the door, her eyes darting nervously. "Claire, what's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. I shoved the bank statement in her face. "This, you and David. Explain." Her face crumpled, but not with guilt, with defiance. "It's not what you think," she stammered, but her lies were as thin as the cigarette smoke curling from her ashtray. She admitted they'd borrowed the money for a business venture, a bar, of all things, that they'd sunk every cent into without telling me. "We were going to pay you back," she insisted, but her words rang hollow. David arrived, his face pale, and the story unraveled further. The bar was failing, the money was gone, and they'd hidden it from me for months. My husband, the man who'd vowed to love and protect me, had chosen his sister over our family. I left Lila's apartment, my mind spinning. Back home, I locked myself in the bathroom, sobbing until my throat burned. Our kids, Emma and Noah, were at school, oblivious to the collapse of everything I'd built for them. I couldn't face David. Not yet. But I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I wiped my tears and called Sarah, my best friend and a lawyer. "I need your help," I said, my voice steadying. "They're not getting away with this." Sarah was a force of nature, all sharp wit and unshakable loyalty. Over coffee the next day, she laid out my options: divorce, lawsuits, or both. "Claire, they betrayed you, but you're not powerless," she said, her eyes blazing. "We'll hit them where it hurts." I nodded, feeling a spark of resolve. I wasn't just fighting for the money. I was fighting for my dignity, for my kids, for the life I deserved. The first step was gathering evidence. Sarah helped me dig through bank records, emails, and texts between David and Lila. Every transaction was a stab to the heart: thousands wired to contractors, liquor suppliers, and shady investors. They'd forged my signature on withdrawal forms, a detail that made my blood boil. Sarah's paralegal found a paper trail leading to a failing bar in Tacoma, a dump with peeling paint and a neon sign that flickered pathetically. I confronted David again, this time with Sarah by my side. He tried to play the victim, claiming he'd done it for us, for a better future. "You lied to me," I shouted, my voice echoing in our living room. "You stole from our kids." He had no answer, just a defeated slump in his shoulders. Lila, when we called her, was worse, screaming about how I was ruining everything by making a fuss. Their arrogance fueled my determination. By the end of the week, Sarah had drafted a lawsuit for fraud and breach of trust. I filed for divorce the same day, my hands shaking as I signed the papers. The kids were confused, asking why Daddy wasn't home. I told them the truth, softened for their young hearts. Daddy made a big mistake, but we're going to be okay. Emma hugged me, her small arms anchoring me to reality. As we prepared for court, I discovered something else. Lila had a history of scams, dragging David into her schemes before. Old friends warned me she'd always been trouble, but I'd been blind, trusting David's loyalty to me over her. Now, I saw clearly. They thought they could break me, but they'd underestimated me. I wasn't just Claire, the betrayed wife. I was Claire, the woman who'd fight tooth and nail for justice. The courtroom loomed in my mind, a battlefield where I'd face them both. Sarah promised we'd expose every lie, every betrayal. I didn't just want my money back, I wanted them to feel the weight of what they'd done. As I tucked Emma and Noah into bed that night, I whispered, "We're going to be all right." And for the first time in days, I believed it. The days leading up to the first court hearing were a blur of sleepless nights and relentless preparation. Sarah's office became my second home, its walls lined with legal books and the faint scent of coffee grounding me. Every document we uncovered tightened the noose around David and Lila's lies. I learned they'd not only stolen my savings, but had taken out loans in my name, forging my signature again. The betrayal cut deeper each time, like a knife twisting in an open wound. I barely saw David. He'd moved into Lila's apartment, leaving our house echoing with his absence. Emma and Noah asked questions I couldn't fully answer. "Why doesn't Daddy come home?" Noah whispered one night, clutching his stuffed dinosaur. I hugged him tightly, promising, "We're fixing things, sweetheart." But the truth was, I was barely holding it together. My anger kept me moving, a fire that burned away the tears. Sarah introduced me to Maria, a private investigator with a knack for unearthing secrets. Maria was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel. She tracked down the bar's financials, revealing a money pit of bad decisions. David and Lila had blown through my savings on overpriced equipment, unpaid staff, and a marketing campaign that never materialized. Worse, they'd funneled cash to Lila's ex-boyfriend, a shady consultant with a rap sheet for fraud. Maria's findings gave us leverage. Sarah filed additional charges for identity theft and forgery, each count a brick in the case we were building. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. I wanted David and Lila to face the consequences of their choices, to see the lives they'd upended. My kids deserved a mother who fought back, not one who crumbled. The first court hearing was a storm of emotions. I sat beside Sarah, my hands clenched in my lap. As David and Lila entered the courtroom, David wouldn't meet my eyes, his face drawn and tired. Lila, on the other hand, strutted in with a smirk, her confidence infuriating. Their lawyer, a slick man in an ill-fitting suit, tried to paint them as misguided entrepreneurs. Sarah dismantled his argument in minutes, presenting bank records and Maria's report with surgical precision. The judge, a stern woman with silver hair, listened intently. When Sarah showed the forged signatures, the air in the room shifted. Lila's smirk faltered, and David's shoulders slumped further. The judge granted a temporary freeze on their assets, including the bar, pending the full trial. It was a small victory, but it felt like a tidal wave. For the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. After the hearing, I met Maria at a diner to discuss next steps. She slid a folder across the table, her voice low. "There's more. Claire, Lila's been running side hustles, using David as her front man." The folder contained evidence of Lila's past scams, fake charities, Ponzi schemes, even a failed real estate flip. David had been her accomplice before, but this time, they'd targeted me. The realization stung, but it also hardened my resolve. I started therapy to cope with the emotional toll. My therapist, Dr. Chun, helped me navigate the guilt I felt for not seeing David's true colors sooner. "You trusted because you loved," she said gently. "That's not weakness, it's human." Her words became my mantra, a reminder that I wasn't to blame for their deceit. At home, I focused on keeping life normal for Emma and Noah. We baked cookies, watched movies, and laughed despite the chaos. But late at night, when the house was quiet, I pored over Sarah's legal briefs, memorizing every detail. I wasn't just preparing for court, I was reclaiming my strength. David and Lila thought they could bury me, but I was rising, piece by piece. As the trial date approached, Sarah warned me it would get uglier. "They'll fight dirty," she said, her eyes narrowing. "But we're ready." I nodded, feeling the weight of what lay ahead. The courtroom would be our battleground, and I was done playing the victim. David and Lila had stolen more than money thieves stolen my trust. Now, they'd face the consequences. The trial loomed like a storm cloud, dark and inevitable. I spent hours with Sarah, rehearsing my testimony until my voice was steady, my story unshakable. Every night, I tucked Emma and Noah into bed, their innocent questions about their father cutting deeper than any courtroom battle. "Will Daddy come to my soccer game?" Emma asked, her eyes hopeful. I forced a smile, promising to be there myself. But inside, I was breaking. Sarah had uncovered more damning evidence. Lila had been skimming cash from the bar's register, pocketing thousands while David looked the other way. Maria's surveillance photos showed Lila meeting her ex-boyfriend, the consultant, at a seedy motel, exchanging envelopes stuffed with cash. It was a betrayal within a betrayal. Lila hadn't just stolen from me. She was double-crossing David too. I almost pitied him, but my anger burned hotter. The first day of the trial was a circus. David's and Lila's lawyer tried to spin a sob story, claiming they'd acted out of desperation to save their family. I sat in the witness stand, my heart pounding, and told the truth, how I'd trusted David with our finances, how he'd forged my signature, how they'd left our family on the brink of ruin. My voice cracked when I mentioned Emma and Noah, but I held my head high. The courtroom was silent, the weight of my words sinking in. Lila took the stand next, her performance dripping with crocodile tears. She claimed I'd misunderstood their intentions, that the bar was meant to secure our future. Sarah tore into her during cross-examination, presenting texts where Lila mocked me as clueless while planning to flee with the remaining cash. The jury's faces hardened, and I felt a flicker of hope. David's testimony was worse. He tried to blame Lila, painting himself as a reluctant accomplice. "I just wanted to help my sister," he said, his voice breaking. But Sarah was relentless, showing the jury his signatures on every fraudulent loan. I stared at him, the man I'd loved for 15 years, and saw a stranger. The jury saw it too, their eyes narrowed with disapproval. Outside the courtroom, I met Karen, another victim of Lila's scams. Karen was a soft-spoken woman in her 40s, her savings drained by Lila's fake charity years ago. She'd been following my case, her own wounds still raw. "You're doing what I couldn't," she said, her voice trembling. "Make her pay." Karen's story fueled me. This wasn't just my fight, it was for everyone Lila had hurt. Sarah and I strategized late into the night, her office littered with coffee cups and legal pads. We planned to call Maria as a witness, her evidence a sledgehammer to David and Lila's defense. But Lila was slippery. She'd hired a new lawyer, a shark who tried to discredit me by digging into my past. They claimed I'd been negligent with our finances, a lie that made my blood boil. Sarah shut it down, presenting years of my meticulous budgeting as evidence of my responsibility. The kids were struggling. Emma started having nightmares, and Noah grew quiet, his dinosaur forgotten on his shelf. I leaned on Dr. Chun, who suggested family therapy. "They need to process this too," she said. I enrolled us, determined to shield them from the worst of the fallout. But every session was a reminder of what David had broken. As the trial continued, the bar's creditors came forward, demanding repayment. David and Lila's dream was crumbling, and I felt a grim satisfaction. They'd thought they could outsmart everyone. But the truth was catching up. Sarah warned me the verdict was still uncertain. But I clung to one thought. I wasn't alone anymore. Karen, Sarah, Maria, even the jury, they were all part of this fight. David and Lila had underestimated us all. The courtroom became my crucible, forging me into someone stronger, sharper. Each day, I sat ramrod straight, my eyes locked on David and Lila as their lies unraveled. Maria took the stand, her testimony a masterclass in precision. She presented photos, bank records, and recordings of Lila bragging about outsmarting me. The jury leaned forward, their faces a mix of shock and disgust. Lila squirmed, her bravado gone, while David stared at the floor, defeated. Sarah's closing argument was a wildfire. "This isn't just theft," she declared, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "This is a betrayal of trust, of family, of love." She pointed to me, then to the jury, making it personal. Claire built a life for her children, and they tore it apart for greed. The words landed like blows, and I saw jurors nod, their eyes meeting mine with empathy. The verdict came faster than expected. Guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, and identity theft. The judge ordered David and Lila to repay every cent, plus damages. The bar was seized to cover their debts, its neon sign dark forever. Lila's assets, her car, her savings were frozen, and David faced wage garnishment for years. They were broke, just like they'd left me. But the victory felt bittersweet. Money couldn't undo the pain. After the trial, Karen found me outside the courthouse. She hugged me, tears in her eyes. "You did it," she whispered. I shook my head. We did it. Karen had testified about Lila's past, her courage bolstering mine. We'd become allies, bound by shared betrayal. She invited me to a support group for scam victims, a lifeline I hadn't known I needed. At home, I faced the harder battle, rebuilding. Emma and Noah were confused but relieved when I explained the trial's outcome. "Does this mean we're safe?" Noah asked, his voice small. I nodded, pulling him close. "We're more than safe, you're strong." But the divorce was still pending, and David's absence left a void. I sold our house, unable to bear its memories, and moved us to a smaller place. A fresh start. Sarah helped me navigate the financial fallout. The restitution wouldn't come quickly, but we secured a settlement from the bar's remaining assets. I used it to open a college fund for the kids, a promise of a better future. Therapy helped us heal. Slowly, Emma started smiling again, and Noah rediscovered his dinosaur. But I couldn't erase the scars David and Lila had left. I ran into David months later at a grocery store. He looked older, his eyes hollow. "Claire, I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely a whisper. I wanted to scream, to demand why he'd chosen Lila over us. Instead, I said, "I hope you find peace." "David, I have." It wasn't entirely true, but it felt like a step toward freedom. Lila, I heard, had skipped town, chased by creditors and her own bad choices. She'd burned every bridge, her charm no match for her reputation. I didn't care where she went, her punishment was her own making. The support group became my anchor, filled with women like Karen, their stories mirroring mine. We laughed, cried, and rebuilt together. As winter settled over Seattle, I felt a shift. The anger that had fueled me was fading, replaced by something quieter: hope. I started a small business, a bakery, pouring my energy into something new. The kids helped, their laughter filling the kitchen as we kneaded dough. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was ours, and it was enough. The bakery became my sanctuary, a place where flour-dusted counters and the scent of fresh bread grounded me. Emma and Noah loved it, sneaking cookies when they thought I wasn't looking. But even as we built this new life, the past lingered. David's apologies came in sporadic texts, each one a plea for forgiveness I wasn't ready to grant. Lila, meanwhile, had vanished. Her name a whisper in Seattle's gossip circles. Karen and I grew closer, meeting weekly at the support group. She shared her own journey, how she'd rebuilt after Lila's scam. "You're stronger than you know," she told me one evening, her voice steady. Her words echoed Dr. Chen's, and I began to believe them. The group was a tapestry of resilience women who'd lost savings, homes, even marriages, but refused to stay broken. The divorce finalized on a rainy spring morning. I signed the papers in Sarah's office, my hand steady but my heart heavy. David didn't contest it, his guilt outweighing his fight. I got full custody of Emma and Noah, a relief that brought fresh tears. "You're free," Sarah said, squeezing my hand. But freedom felt raw, like a wound still healing. Financially, things were tight. The restitution payments trickled in, barely covering rent. The bakery was gaining traction, but profits were slim. I took a part-time job at a community center, teaching baking classes to kids. Their joy-messy hands and wide smiles reminded me why I kept going. Emma joined me sometimes, her confidence growing as she taught younger kids to roll dough. One evening, Maria called with news. Lila had been arrested in Portland for another scam. The story made local news. Her mugshot splashed across screens. I felt no joy, only a quiet satisfaction. Lila's choices had caught up with her, just as Sarah had predicted. David, I learned, was working odd jobs, his life a shadow of what it had been. Their punishment wasn't just financial, it was the loss of everything they'd valued. The support group organized a fundraiser for scam victims, and I volunteered, pouring my heart into it. We raised enough to help 3 families avoid eviction, a small victory that felt monumental. Karen and I celebrated with cheap wine, toasting to second chances. "You're not just surviving," she said. "You're thriving." I smiled, feeling the truth of it settle in my bones. Emma and Noah started therapy too, their sessions helping them process their father's absence. Emma wrote a letter to David, not to send, but to release her anger. Noah drew pictures of our new life, bright, messy sketches of the bakery and our dog. Their resilience humbled me. I'd fought for them, but they were teaching me how to heal. The bakery's first big order came from a local school, a contract for daily breakfast pastries. It was a lifeline, proof that my gamble was paying off. I hired a part-time baker, a single mom named Jess who'd been in the support group. We worked side by side, her quiet strength mirroring mine. The bakery wasn't just a business, it was a community, a testament to what we could build from ashes. As summer approached, I took the kids to the beach, our first trip since the trial. We built sandcastles, laughed, and let the waves wash away the weight of the past year. I looked at Emma and Noah, their faces lit by the setting sun, and felt a peace I hadn't known in years. David and Lila had tried to break us, but we were whole, stronger, wiser, and free. The bakery's success felt like a miracle, but it was hard won. Every morning, I woke at dawn, kneading dough while the kids slept. Jess became my right hand, her quick laugh brightening the long hours. Customers started calling us Seattle's hidden gem, and the local paper ran a feature on our comeback story. I framed it, hanging it behind the counter as a reminder we'd survived. But the past wasn't done with us. David showed up at the bakery one afternoon, his face gaunt, his clothes worn. "Claire, can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. Customers glanced over, sensing the tension. I led him to the back, my heart pounding. He begged for a second chance, claiming he'd changed. I was weak, he said, tears in his eyes. Lila manipulated me. I listened, but my heart was stone. "You made your choices," I said. "Now live with them." He left, and I leaned against the counter, trembling. Jess squeezed my shoulder. "You did the right thing," she said. I nodded, but the encounter shook me. Dr. Chen helped me unpack it in therapy. "You're not responsible for his redemption," she said. Focus on you. I clung to that, pouring my energy into the bakery and my kids. Emma and Noah were thriving. Emma joined the soccer team, her confidence blooming, while Noah's drawings won a school art contest. I framed his winning paisea, vibrant sketch of our family. Minus David. It hurt, but it was honest. They were healing, and so was I, one small step at a time. Karen called with an idea, a community event to raise awareness about financial scams. We planned it at the bakery, turning the space into a hub of music, food, and stories. Survivors shared their experiences, their voices raw but powerful. I spoke last, telling my story to a crowd of strangers and friends. They took my money, I said, my voice steady, but they couldn't take my fight. The applause was deafening, a wave of solidarity. The event raised enough to fund a local nonprofit helping scam victims. Karen and I hugged, tears mixing with laughter. We're changing things, she said. I felt it to a ripple effect, our pain turning into purpose. Jess joined us, her own story of loss and recovery inspiring others. The bakery wasn't just a business. It was a beacon. Lila's name surfaced again in the news, pleaded guilty to her latest charges, facing years in prison. I didn't watch the coverage. Her downfall was her own, and I was done letting her occupy my thoughts. David, I heard, had moved to a small town, working as a mechanic. His life was quiet, small, a far cry from the dreams he'd chased with Lila. The kids asked about him sometimes, and I answered honestly. He loves you, I said, but he made mistakes. They nodded, their young hearts resilient but scarred. We built new traditions: Friday movie nights, Sunday hikes, each one a brick in our new foundation. The bakery grew, and I hired another employee, a young man from the support group who'd lost everything to a similar scam. As fall painted Seattle in gold and red, I felt a shift. The anger that had once defined me was gone, replaced by a quiet strength. I wasn't just surviving, I was living. The bakery, the kids, the community, they were my legacy. Proof that betrayal couldn't define me. David and Lila had tried to break me, but I'd built something better from the ruins. A year after the trial, the bakery was thriving, its tables filled with regulars who knew my story. Emma and Noah helped on weekends, their laughter mingling with the clink of coffee cups. The scars of David and Lila's betrayal remained, but they no longer defined us. We'd built a life that was ours, forged in resilience and love. Karen and I expanded the support group, partnering with local nonprofits to offer financial literacy workshops. We spoke at schools, sharing our stories to warn others. Trust, but verify, I told a room of wide-eyed teens, Emma watching proudly from the back. The work was healing, turning our pain into prevention. Jess led a session, her humor disarming even the toughest crowds. The restitution payments, though slow, kept coming. I used them to fund scholarships for scam victims, a legacy for Emma and Noah. They were growing fast. Emma, now 12, was a fierce soccer player, and Noah, 10, dreamed of being an artist. Their strength amazed me. We talked about David openly now, their questions softer, their anger fading. He sent birthday cards, which they read but didn't answer. Healing was their choice, not his. One evening, a woman walked into the bakery, her face familiar but older. It was David's mother, Ellen, whom I hadn't seen since the divorce. She apologized, her voice trembling, for not stopping Lila and David. I should have seen it, she said, tears falling. I hugged her, forgiving not for them, but for me. We're okay, I told her, and meant it. Ellen became a regular, her presence a quiet bridge to the past we'd left behind. The bakery won a local business award, a surprise that brought tears to my eyes. At the ceremony, I stood with Jess, Karen, and the kids, our makeshift family. This is for everyone who thought they'd lost everything, I said, my voice breaking. The crowd cheered, and Noah squeezed my hand. Later, we celebrated with cake, the kids smearing frosting on each other's faces. Lila's prison sentence was extended after new charges surfaced. I didn't follow the details. Her story was no longer mine. David sent a letter, longer this time, detailing his regrets and his attempts to rebuild. I read it, then tucked it away. Forgiveness wasn't my goal. Moving forward was. Dr. Chin called it radical acceptance, and it felt like freedom. As winter returned, I took Emma and Noah to the mountains, where we skied and laughed until our cheeks hurt. The bakery's success allowed small luxuries, but the real wealth was in our moments together. I looked at my kids, their faces bright against the snow, and knew we'd won. Not just the lawsuit, but the war for our future. The bakery's sign glowed in the Seattle dusk, a beacon of hope. Customers shared their own stories of betrayal and recovery, drawn to our warmth. I realized something profound. David and Lila's betrayal had broken me, but it had also built me. I was Claire Mother, survivor, fighter, and I was enough. As I locked up one night, the stars above Seattle sparkled, and I smiled. We hadn't just survived, we'd soared.